Hey everybody, I'm excited to run through a deep dive of the Arizona Cardinals and New Orleans Saints game this week. We did one video like this last week with the Packers and Raiders. We had a nice response. I'm going to do 5 videos this week. This is the first of these videos. I use my daily fantasy analytics and I do watch every game, so I scout as well. We're going to run through. I'm going to give you the game plan that I think will happen. Not to pat myself on the back too much. I'm usually pretty accurate with that. That helps in daily fantasy and in fantasy football. And at the end there, we're going to give you our fantasy football projections for this game. Please, if you ever want my full list of all the games and all the positions, the fantasy football analytics, you can always get those for free. Just email me. You can see the information at the below in the section there. And you can also follow me on Twitter. You can see that link as well. I'm at TFS_Sean. Before we get rolling, just let me ask you, please, if you can spare me, about 2 seconds to give me 2 clicks, one on the like, one on the subscribe. The more subscribers and likes we get in our videos, the closer we get to becoming a YouTube partner. And then when we do that, it's not all selfish. It unlocks a lot of features that we want to put into these videos. So if you can help us grow and help our community and join our community, we'd appreciate it. I think you'll benefit from it as well. That's my hope. But anyway, let's get rolling. What I like to do, and I always look at these games from the eyes of an emotionless, biasless, really just a gambler, because that's what I do. I like to play daily fantasy. I like to bet on games against the spread. I don't really follow teams. I really truly come in with no bias. I like this Arizona Cardinals team. I like this offense that Kingsbury's putting together. I like Kyler Murray more than I thought I would, frankly. I think he's growing, and I love this Saints team, okay? I like and I love. But let's look at these injuries. So you have David Johnson. That doesn't concern me too much, honestly, because I think Chase Edmonds is electric, and I think he does quite well as a running back in this system. So even though David Johnson's a monster, I get it. I'm not as concerned with this injury, but you can see kind of the host of players that Arizona has injured there. Max Williams, again, tight end in this system, doesn't really concern me. They have Charles Clay as well. Not a big deal. Christian Kirk, for me, is a big one. Facing off against Lattimore with the Saints, if Lattimore... I think you got to line Fitzgerald up. We'll talk about that when we get to the game plan. But they need another talented receiver. No shade at Bird or Johnson or Isabella or any of these guys that they have. They need Christian Kirk in this game. For the Saints, you can see Drew Brees is now questionable. Is he going to play? If he plays, I got to think that the Saints win this one going away. I'm sorry, Cardinals fans. That's my personal opinion. Kamara, is he going to play? Oh, man, this is such a great matchup for him. I hope that he does. But if he doesn't, Latavius Murray, we saw last week, I think he will perform quite well. Traquan Smith, I think, has fallen in the depth chart behind Ted Ginn. I don't think he's crucial, but you see Will Compton there. You see some other guys. Jared Cook is another guy. I think this is a great matchup for him if he plays. If not, you got to look at a guy like, Hill, whether it's Josh or Taysom or whatever his name is. So, check these out. But, injury reports, I would say that my bigger concern is I think Arizona needs to be healthy to cover this spread, which is 8.5. I think they're going to lose the game regardless. Again, sorry, Cardinals fans. That's just how I feel. I'm not throwing shade at you. I like what this Cardinals team's doing, but the Saints, man, they're just so good, and they've been winning all their games without Teddy Bridgewater. Now, I want to go into some of, how I break these things down in terms of gambling, right? So let's just look at the offensive and defensive matchups, and I like to compare these teams rather than look at pass offense. Again, right next to pass offense. Let's look at the offense versus defense. So you can see right off the bat, the Cardinals ranked 19th in passing offense, and the Saints ranked 14th in passing defense. That's kind of a wash for me. Then you look at the Cardinals' pass defense versus the pass offense for the Saints, 25th versus 13th. That's an advantage, and I would say a heavy advantage for the New Orleans Saints. And keep in mind, too, this is a pass offense with Teddy Bridgewater throwing the ball, which, let's be honest about this, Teddy Bridgewater probably isn't a future Hall of Famer. Drew Brees is. If Brees comes back, and had he played the full stretch, you're looking at a top 10 passing offense for the Saints. So I do think that's a heavy advantage, heavier if Drew Brees plays. Look at the run offense for the Cardinals, 11th versus the run defense of the Saints, which I've always been impressed with. That's pretty neutral there from my point of view. And then the run defense, 25th for the Cardinals versus their 15th ranked run offense for the Saints. Again, advantage heavily in favor of the New Orleans Saints there. Now, I like to look at these gambling analytics too. If you're not familiar with against the spread, I actually have a book. I may as well link it in the show notes below. It's called, I think, like I can't even remember what the name is. It's like, how to bet on sports and win or something like that. But my idea is you should always you should look at this from a measured, emotionless point of view, right? Don't just look at this two teams playing and say, oh my gosh, the Saints are going to blow out the Cardinals. It's more about matchup and how these teams, play together. And one of the biggest gambling statistics that professional gamblers use. I'm not professional. I would say I'm not even semi-professional. I'm slightly part-time professional. But a lot of the gamblers out there, the sharp money, they like to look at offensive yards per play, turnover margin, third down conversions, things like that. So I like to put these in a bundle for everybody. If you look at and compare, offensive yards per play versus defensive yards per play, you can see the Cardinals and the defense for the Saints are both at 5.4. Similarly, for the Saints, they average 5.7, but the Cardinals give up 6 yards per play. That's troublesome against a team like the Saints. And if you look down further, the offensive third down conversions and fourth down conversions, again, it's a wash between the Saints defense and the Cardinals offense. But if you look at the Cardinals defense and the Saints offense, you can see that on average, you're probably looking at, maybe 38% to 42-ish% for the Saints and the Cardinals if you put them in a relational format. Fourth down percentage, the Cardinals, need to be aggressive in this game. It's nice to see that they're looking at 100% in fourth down conversions this year. But then you look at the fourth down conversions for the Saints, and they're at 50%. That's pretty darn good too. So extending drives, both teams will be aggressive and tend to be successful in that way. If I had to say one would favor one or the other, I would say in terms of extending drives, the Cardinals would be more aggressive and be maybe a little bit better, but on third downs, I actually favor, when you consider both the weighted offensive and defensive matchups, I favor the Saints again. So that's a big stat. And then you look at turnover margin. The Saints are averaging 0.6 in plus turnover percentages a game. That's like half a possession they get per game. Whereas the Cardinals, although they're good at 0.3, that's only a third of a possession. So again, as a gambler, you look at these offensive advantage goes to the Saints in the passing and the running game, as we saw in the last graphic. In this, when you look at all the heavy gambling analytics, they all tend to favor the Saints as well. So as I look at that, combined with Christian Kirk being questionable, it worries me a little bit from the Saints or the Cardinals' point of view, and I think that the Cardinals are at a little bit more of a disadvantage than I gave credit for when I started this team, and especially the Saints are at home. So let's look at a game plan, right? How can the Cardinals win this game? Not just cover the spread, but win this game. And how can the New Orleans Saints win this game? And I'm just going to go through line by line per each team first. So the Cardinals, what they have to do, they have to run a fast-paced game. The New Orleans Saints have a crazy good pass rush, and when they get teams off the field, meaning like if there's a 3-and-out or maybe only one first down, that defensive line can stay fresh and they can wreak havoc in the passing game. Now, in terms of matchup, I like what this scheme does for Cliff Kingsbury. It gets the ball out of the hand quick. It moves the pocket. Kyler Murray is super fast. But here's what I'm looking at, again, purely as a gambler, emotionless. Can Arizona sustain drives and neutralize the pass rush by making the New Orleans Saints defensive line a little bit tired? Yes, they can, but how are they going to do that? Again, it's moving off the line, having Kyler Murray run out to the left or the right, move the pocket a little bit, and then get rid of the ball quickly. That means, hitting Chase Edmonds or David Johnson, whoever's playing, hitting Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk quick. Now, the Saints obviously are going to crash up their cornerbacks and their coverage to try to take that away, and we'll see how that goes. But the Saints have to get rid of the ball quickly, and they have to extend drives. I say use Larry Fitzgerald in the slot. You don't want him matching up on the outside with Lattimore often, although I think Larry Fitzgerald is very good, and I do think he'll win that matchup occasionally. I do think Lattimore right now is playing at a higher level than Larry Fitzgerald is. And so I think you need to move Larry Fitzgerald to take away some of that matchup, especially if Christian Kirk is out. You need to get Lattimore off of Larry Fitzgerald and scheme him, and I think that you have to do that in the slot. Is Lattimore going to chase him down? Frankly, I'm not as familiar with that. I think Lattimore plays more on the outside, but Saints fans, please keep me honest here. Please comment if you think I'm wrong about that, and I will definitely take that into consideration. Number 3, Christian Kirk has to play. If it's Larry Fitzgerald, and they can just focus on double teaming Larry Fitzgerald in the slot or having Lattimore kind of go one-on-one on the outside, I just don't see any path to victory for the Cardinals. Kirk has to play. You have to have another elite type receiver to keep this Saints Saints defense on the field and the Cardinal offense on the field. Number 4, the Cardinals have to steal a possession or two. They have to be aggressive on fourth down, and I'm talking about, when I say fourth and short here, that's not 4th and 1. I'm talking about 4th and 3 or less. You're going to have to steal, I think, 2 possessions a game. Now, maybe you get one of those in the turnover margin, but as I talked about before, the turnover margin benefits the Saints, but you have to steal 2 possessions here. So I'm talking about, even on the turnovers, so limit those, but the Cardinals are pretty good with that. And then also, importantly, extend drives even when there's fourth down. And then number 5 there, you see win the turnover differential. I'm okay with that if they can extend fourth down. If you're even there, extend more fourth downs. If you don't extend more fourth downs, you have to, like I said, 2 possessions at a minimum they have to get to win this game, in my opinion. That could be a surprise offensive kick or onside kick, but I doubt that's the case. Now, the Saints, what do they have to do to win the game? They have the advantage here, let's be honest, right? Play a patient offensive game. They have the advantage at receiver, running back, quarterback. Regardless if Alvin Kamara plays, I think Latavius Murray does well. I think he's very underrated. He's done well in Oakland. He's done well in Minnesota. He did well last week against a tough defense. Be patient and just take your shots. You don't have to push and take risks like the Cardinals do in this game. Whether they run with Kamara or Latavius Murray, use that and use play action to hit Mike Thomas. I think that's a matchup that can be exploited this week. I don't think they have anybody that can cover him. Integrate the tight end position. We saw Jared Cook is a questionable. Maybe it's Hill that gets the targets there, but that is a matchup they can exploit. Again, be patient, ball control. Don't turn the ball over. Don't beat yourself. And then avoid costly mistakes. Again, don't beat yourself. And play bump and run coverage against the Arizona receivers. You force the issue a little bit with Kyler Murray. If Christian Kirk is in the game, you want to respect him a little bit. But if he's not, let Kyler Murray beat you. I don't think he will. Force the issue. And, that bump and run coverage, what that's going to do is it's going to make Kyler Murray hold the ball a little bit more, and it's going to give a little bit more juice to that defensive line. Just a little half second, maybe 0.2 of a second, just for that pass rush to get there. And that's a very formidable pass rush. So the more they can do that, the better. Okay, let's move it on to the RoccoBot predictions. If you're not familiar, RoccoBot is really just my computer engine that I built to predict fantasy football outcomes. My daily fantasy listeners and followers, they do quite well. My fantasy football followers, they do quite well. Are these going to be perfect? No, but more often than not, they're right. So let's take a look. Kyler Murray, I have as a kind of a sit this week at 16.67. Whether it's David Johnson or Chase Edmonds handling the lion's share of the carries, I think both are kind of fringe starts, but I think Chase Edmonds, I feel better playing Chase Edmonds than David Johnson this week, just because we all saw what happened last week, and it infuriated me because I got the projection right for Arizona, but I thought David Johnson was starting because he did start. Anyway, screw that. Larry Fitzgerald, I think, is a fringe start. I don't think he's going to get in the end zone, but I think he's good there. Christian Kirk needs to play. If he plays, he's kind of a lower fringe start, more of a desperation play, and I don't really like anybody else for the Cardinals from a fantasy football or daily fantasy point of view. Now, for the New Orleans Saints, I have Teddy Bridgewater in here. I know Drew Brees is questionable. I got to think, given how good the Saints are playing, just let Brees sit one more week. That's my feeling. I could be completely wrong on that. But regardless, I think the quarterback is a start. If it's Bridgewater, you see I have him at 20 points. That's probably 2 to 2.5 touchdowns. Okay, 2 to 3. If it's Brees, I'm thinking Brees gets at least 3 touchdowns this week. Alvin Kamara, I think, is a definite start if he plays. If not, I think Latavius Murray is a definite start. But don't start 2 running backs. If Kamara's in there, only start Kamara. If Kamara's out, obviously only start Murray. Michael Thomas, I think, gets in the end zone twice this week. Ted Ginn, I like particularly in daily fantasy because that's a nice point projection, 14 for a receiver that's going to be lower cost, and he can also be a waiver wire pick up and play if you're looking for that. Traquan Smith, not so much. And you see Jared Cook there, that tight end with a nice projection. I do think the tight end will get in the end zone this week. You can see the defenses there. I don't favor this matchup for the Cardinals defense. You saw 6 yards per play, and the Saints are really good at extending drives. And then you look at the New Orleans Saints. Will they force turnovers? I think they might get one, might get two. I don't think they'll get a lot of sacks this week because of the quick passing offense of the Cardinals. But we'll see. I mean, if this game gets out of proportion and the Saints get up quick, then Arizona needs to be more aggressive. We talked about fourth down. Maybe Kyler Murray has to push the ball downfield when there's less of a passing window, and that might favor the Saints. Although the Saints did kind of screw me over last week in garbage time against the Bears and give up a couple points, but that's okay. We still won the game. That takes me through. Please, again, Cardinals fans, Saints fans, teams that are closer, to your team and know your team better. Please comment, keep me honest, let me know what you think. Catch us on another video. I think we're going to be doing the Eagles and the Bills and the Patriots and Saints. I think we're going to do Oakland and Houston, a couple of games. So check these out. And if these things start to take off, I think I'll get to the point where I'll be doing every single game of these deep dives a week. Once again, give me a follow, give me an email, and check out more videos. Thanks, everyone. Bye.